just one. All right, that's a good one. All right. Hello and welcome to the second annual You Say You Want a Resolution Public Debate and Benefit for the Los Angeles Metropolitan Debate League. My name is Jokim Brynat, and I debate for Harvard Teacher Preparatory Academy. This is the year my debate partner, Subingsubing, and I were the first national team in history to win the Urban Debate National Championship. We are also the first team in league history to qualify and compete in the nation's most competitive debate tournament, the Tournament of Champions. We're excited to have you with us this afternoon. We ask you to support and celebrate the incredible and important necessary work for the Los Angeles Metropolitan Debate League. That was founded in 2007 with just four Los Angeles public high schools. Today, Limited Policy Debate Portal is 30 high schools serving more than 650 students per year. Celebrities committed to restoring access to competitive policy debate throughout the most underserved schools, public schools. Our program consists of several elements. We recruit, develop, and train teachers to serve as debate coaches. We organize and host recruitment events and interact students. We develop debate curriculum for classes and after-school programs. We staff and host 10 league debate tournaments annually. We provide sponsored mentorship for students to compete in the highest level national tournament. We offer a week-long summer debate workshop at the University of Southern California. We offer college readiness seminars. We run a number of prominent universities to connect our students to collegiate debate. We offer career pathway programs and offer mentorship, fellowship, and internship. And our students compete in the annual National Association Urban Debate League Championship Tournament that we won this year, as I mentioned earlier. For those of you who are new to policy debate is a competition which teams compose of two students advocate for and against the activity calls for the policy change by the United States federal government on issues of national importance. Policy debate is one of the most rigorous academic activities a student can participate in. It combines literary analysis, research, critical thinking, public speaking, organization, advocacy. To prepare for competition, students spend hundreds of hours at each session, easy reading new articles in college journals, as well as rehearsing their presentations for debate. Has developed the most critical skills and confidence to succeed in college and beyond. Tonight we have broken down policy debate to show as many of its moving parts so that we can demonstrate the complex beauty of the debate format. Because we are essentially pulling apart the policy debate instead of two teams of two debaters going head to head. We are showcasing many parts of the debate while spotting a number of varsity and junior varsity debaters from high schools across our league. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Enjoy the debate.
So you're like, what just happened? Well, first I want to just thank you and welcome you to the second annual You Say You Want a Resolution Public Debate and Benefit. Give it up for being here. Thank you. My name is Michael Cirelli. I'm the Executive Director of Lambdal, as it's otherwise known as, and more importantly, the person that you just saw is Jokim Brynat, who is a member of the National Championship winning team from Harvard Teachers Prep Academy. Give it up for Jokim. What you just saw Jokim do is an example of what we call in policy debate spreading. Spreading or speed reading is a practice in advanced policy debate where debaters talk at a much faster pace while reading a speech, as you just saw. The reason why debaters do this is because it allows them to read more arguments and have more in-depth debates with the intent that one's opponent will be penalized for failing to respond to all arguments raised. And because each speech is timed, spreading is a popular strategy to overwhelm an opponent with a number of distinct arguments, and I think you probably were overwhelmed as well with that introduction to our event. So luckily for the sake of this event, we are slowing down the speeches. If you would come to one of our debates that we have all over Los Angeles, this is how a lot of the debaters do perform their speeches for that strategic advantage. So it's really cool. Also today, instead of seeing, as he mentioned, two debaters who are going to go head to head, we've basically pulled apart the debate and made it more demonstrative than competitive. And by that, I mean we get to see different debaters that are going to do the different speeches and parts of a policy debate. So it's really a demonstration and less of a competition. So we're really excited about that. And also we get to celebrate a lot more debaters in this format as well. So you get to see the different parts. All of these debaters are varsity and junior varsity debaters from different high schools across our region. So excited that we get to do it in this format as well. We get more students involved. As you may know, the Los Angeles Metropolitan Debate League is one of our nation's top debate programs, serving 30 LAUSD public high schools with debate programs, producing 10 league tournaments each year. We support travel to invitational tournaments as well as offering comprehensive resources for our debaters and alumni, teachers and coaches, as well as a growing series of college and career prep programs, fellowships and internships. On the back page of the program, we kind of broke down what we do as an organization into its constituent parts, so you get to see like what it's like to run a program like this, and it takes a team effort. We got tons of alumni here as well that are here to help support this event, and we're really grateful for them. And you can learn more about our work at lambdal.org, www.lamdl.org. So let's get on with the debate. We couldn't offer this demonstration without expert color commentary that helped guide you through the various parts of the debate, the types of speeches and formats that drive drive a policy debate and some of the strategic ways debaters respond to various arguments. Instead of having judges weigh in at the end of the debate, today's host will deliver appropriate remarks and insights to what you will see or did see in each speech. And I'm very excited to introduce and welcome our Lambda board member and debate legend, Mike Bietz. Mike Bietz has been a debate coach since 1994 when he was in his first year at the University of Minnesota. And since 2007, he's been the head of the debate program at Harvard Westlake, where his debaters and his programs have won every major regular season invitational tournament and every major national championship multiple times. He currently serves on the advisory board for the Tournament of Champions and formerly served as the president of the National Debate Coaches Association. So you're in really good hands with Mike to break it all down for you. So please give a warm round of applause to Mike Bietz.
Okay, so what I'll be doing is I'll just be previewing and introducing each debater before they come up and sort of give somewhat of what the goal of each speech is going to be. So we'll just start it right off. The resolution that they're going to be debating, and this is the resolution they debated all year, is resolved: the United States federal government should substantially increase its protection of water resources in the United States. The first speaker is going to be Andrew, and he's going to argue that the United States federal government should ban hydraulic fracking. In this speech, the affirmative needs to establish a few things. First, they need to establish that there is some harm happening in the current system, or in the status quo, is how it will often be referred to, is that there are harms taking place. That means there are bad things that are happening. They need to prove that nothing is being done right now to solve those problems. So we call that the inherent barrier or inherency. And lastly, they have to prove that the plan that they're offering will solve these problems. And in solving these problems, they're going to claim that there are two advantages. One, that they're going to work towards solving climate change, and two, that they're going to increase public health. Immediately after Andrew is done giving his speech, he will be cross-examined by Jokim, and Jokim, in cross-examination, is done after every constructive speech. In cross-examination, you have three main goals. One, you want to clarify arguments. You want to clarify so that you know that you're arguing against the arguments that they've made. So if you didn't understand something, you want to make sure that you got it, or if you didn't flow something, you want to make sure that you understand their argument completely. Second, you want to try to find contradictions in their case. You want to find places where it does not necessarily, where it might not necessarily jive, that they might be able to solve problems in the ways that they say they're going to solve them. And lastly, you want to try to get some concessions in order to set up what you're going to be doing, what your strategy is going to be against the affirmative plan. Once the affirmative has read a plan in a debate round, the debate becomes less about the resolution and it becomes about the affirmative's advocacy. And that's what they'll be debating. Andrew, go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. I'm Andrew Subingsubing. I just graduated from Harvard Teacher Prep. I'm the other half of the partnership with Jokim. I wanted to start off, my speech with a personal anecdote. When I first joined debate, they told me that it would be hard. And as a novice, I thought this meant like memorizing evidence packets, but in reality, it meant making debate a priority as an activity as well as a community. I can recall a discussion I had with my coach who said some students have the potential to be amazing debaters, but they end up spreading themselves too thin with too many extracurricular activities instead of being dedicated to this activity. It was after that talk I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't be another mediocre debater. In that moment, I had no idea the hard work it would take to fulfill that promise. It was through this that I realized how much you had to put in to become an amazing debater. Not everyone sees that work, though. What most people see is a few crucial moments that occur in the heat of competition. Moments that feel like they're all or nothing. My moment came at the UNLV Invitational in February of 2022. We had a single bid at this point in the year, and we were on the search for our second so that we can qualify to the TOC. Qualifying to the TOC would be the tangible accomplishment that reflected my commitment and success in debate. I was already halfway there, and now it came down to one more tournament. UNLV was my moment. All we had to do was make it to the quarterfinals, and we would have our second bid. Day one came and went, and we were miraculously 4-0 after day one. We had never won 4 consecutive rounds at a national circuit tournament before that time. That feeling was unlike any other. The next day, boom, right out of the gate, we won round 5. In round 6, we were set to debate the only other undefeated team at the tournament. After a 45-minute decision, we got the ballot. Jokim literally jumped in the air and bear tackled me to the ground, and we were on Zoom at my house, so it was like a really special moment. It was really funny. But I was in shock. That feeling was irrevocable, or so I thought. Now in elimination rounds, we were the top seed debating the bottom seed with a seemingly good panel for our arguments. Nothing could stop us, unless that thing is a 2-1 decision for the other team. We were crushed, to say the least. After, having the tournament of our lives, we fell 1 ballot short. Not only did we not go deep in the tournament like we should have, but we missed out on our bid and lost in octafinals. After all of that work, after every ballot in prelims, it felt like it didn't mean anything. In the moment, it was easy to discount our own effort when our tournament records didn't reflect what we knew we were capable of. So, did that mean that the moment was gone? Did it mean that all of the speech drills and research before meant nothing? No, it wasn't. That day, I was reminded what makes debate special. While oftentimes debates do come down to individual moments, with perseverance and hard work, you can create those moments again with the support of your coaches and our community to get back up. While we lost that debate in Las Vegas, we were forced to put our foot on the gas and hustle for the Berkeley tournament later that month. It was the last chance to get our final bid, and luckily we earned it then. Not only that, but I was the top speaker at that tournament. My success in debate wasn't because of one lucky moment, it was because of 4 years of learning. Each win and loss iteratively improving myself as a student and as a debater. Without a lot of individual moments, my debate story would undeniably be incomplete. All of the hard losses and astounding victories come together to create one cohesive story of success. And with that, I'll get on to the 1AC proper. According to Dave Roberts, an expert in climate change research, American-based hydraulic fracturing is the biggest contributor to global methane emissions. As it turns out, methane emissions are among the worst of the greenhouse gases. More so than carbon dioxide or nitrous oxide, methane is responsible for accelerating our global temperature more than any other single thing. This spike in global temperature is not new news. Scientists have been reporting on the deadly nature of global warming for decades. We can better understand the immediate threat that global warming poses through David Spratt's breakthrough research done in 2019. He describes that if we continue down this present path, there's a very big risk that we will just end our civilization. In other words, if humans are unable to change their consumptive habits with things like natural gas production produced through fracking, we will see an end to the human race. According to Jessica Corbett, a member of a nonprofit group called Food and Water Watch, the U.S. is the biggest contributor to gas production growth around the world. Due to the combined fact that fracking produces the most potent greenhouse gas and that the United States is the biggest producer of methane, the only feasible way to put a hold on climate change would be to go directly to the source, that is fracking. Because of the undeniable facts surrounding the danger of fracking, we propose a complete and total ban of hydraulic fracturing in the United States. But not only would banning hydraulic fracturing be a pivotal step in combating climate change, it would also make immense strides in improving community health around fracking sites. Edward Keeter, a pediatrician, reports that fracking produces a cradle-to-grave cycle for those babies born near fracking sites. Moreover, he reports that fracking significantly increases the chances of impaired infant development, seeing things like asthma, health problems, skin rashes, mental health issues, as well as cancer. These health conditions are unjustly perpetuated on the most innocent and vulnerable people in our society, babies and children. Not only do fracking sites make devastating health conditions inevitable for those around them, but they are also disproportionately put in poor Black and brown communities. The location of these fracking sites makes health and wealth disparities grow in communities that are already one step behind in terms of social and financial equality. According to Kara Harris, African Americans are 75% more likely to live near industrial sites than the average American. This widens health disparities and makes it exponentially harder for people to move up the social ladder. As we can so clearly see, hydraulic fracturing in the long run contributes to runaway global warming that could spell the end of the entire world as we know it, and in the short term harms children's health and makes it harder for disadvantaged communities to ensure social progress. Absent a convincing argument for why fracking should remain, it is obvious that our country should ban any and all hydraulic fracturing practices in the United States to ensure the stopping of climate change and the health and safety of children who live around fracking sites. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is fracking the only thing that contributes to climate change?
While fracking might not be the only thing that contributes to climate change, we've read evidence that it is the biggest producer of methane, which is the most potent greenhouse gas and accelerates climate change the fastest.
Well, thank you for the first part. Since fracking isn't the only thing that contributes to climate change, what do you do to limit those alternative causes?
Well, we've read evidence that says the most dangerous or the most dangerous contributor to climate change is methane. So we think that if we're able to get rid of the methane production through fracking, we can solve climate change.
Mm-hmm. If you ban fracking, what would be the alternative energy resources to use?
Well, we think there are a lot of, alternatives to fracking. Things like electric, solar, wind power are all viable options.
All right. It's been proven that coal is the second best thing up to after fracking. What would you do about any coal problems that come after?
Well, as of the 1AC, we haven't read any evidence about coal, but we think that through renewable energies are a far more attractive option for most companies, and we think that that would probably be the direction that they would go in.
Last question. What would happen to all the people that lose their jobs when you ban fracking?
Well, I think that they would need to get new jobs, but I would argue that the securing people's health and safety is more important than losing a job.
When cross-X is done, the negative will generally spend some time either preparing or realistically, they know what they're going to say before they walk into the debate round because, as Andrew mentioned, they put in a lot of work going in preparing for debates. I've always told my own debaters that about 95% of the round can be determined before you even walk into a debate round, that it's all about preparation. It's a preparation activity. And you'll notice that with the fast reading, it's no longer this activity where you stand up and you see these great, orators speaking. There's events for that, like original oratory. In debate, we're focused on argumentation and research. Those are the two things that we're focused on. I wanted to also address a couple of the other things that Andrew brought up, and that's the amount that they have to, specifically about the hard work that they put into this. They have to switch sides at a debate tournament. And at most debate tournaments, there's 6 debate rounds, and they have to go affirmative 3 times, and they have to go negative 3 times. And this fracking case that they're arguing is one of dozens of different cases that an affirmative could run, and they have to be prepared to debate all of those. John Sexton, the former president of NYU, said that when he was advocating for debate, argued that 1 year of policy debate is the equivalent of getting a master's degree in that subject. That's the amount of research that these kids are asked to do in preparing for these debate topics. And I also wanted to add that, and it touches on a little bit what Andrew said, that a lot of what's learned in debate is not just the research skills, the sort of hard skills that you learn in becoming more knowledgeable on a topic, but also a couple of things that are words I hear all the time at my school. The first one is grit, perseverance, and Andrew talked about this perseverance that you had to have. In debate, you lose, you have to get right back up and do it again. It's not like a sport where you get a week off or you get a couple days off to go think about your loss. You have to get right back up and debate again when you lose a debate round. And that's something that I've had so many parents tell me that the thing that they love most about debate was that their kid learned how to lose and kind of get over it and just get right back up and not wallow in it. And the other thing is that debate really does teach this growth mindset. Nothing is fixed in debate. How you do your first tournament isn't how you're going to do all the time. You can get better. You can see the arguments that other people are running. You can incorporate those arguments into your arguments, and you can continuously improve. It's not like taking a test where you take a test and then you're done with it. You are continuously improving. And those are some of the soft skills that debate teaches as well. Okay, so the negative is done preparing. The negative, like I mentioned before, their job is to say the affirmative plan is a bad idea. You can see in cross-examination that Jokim started setting up some of the arguments that they're going to be making on the negative side. The first speech you're going to hear is from Daniel, and he's going to argue that, and he's going to attack the case itself. In attacking the case, you'll usually argue that the harms aren't as bad as the affirmative is claiming, although a lot of people won't do that because it's hard to say that the harms aren't that bad. Instead, they'll say that the mechanism of solvency isn't going to work, that it will lead to some worse things happening. Jokim asked about, well, what about other causes? So you're really, the goal of making case arguments is to put doubt into the mind of the judge about the effectiveness of the affirmative and whether or not the affirmative has actually met their burden to prove that you should vote for the affirmative. Go ahead. Daniel.
All right. Okay. Thank you for the introduction. And yeah, hello everyone. My name is Daniel Medina. I'm in 10th grade from Huntington Park High School. This is my first year debating, and today I will argue why fracking is not as bad as Andrew may have led you to believe. But before that, I would just like to thank everybody for being here and showing up. It means a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you. And let everyone know why debate is really important to me. So before debate, I had trouble finding opportunities to use my knowledge and interest in strategic thinking outside of sports. And however, earlier this year, when I discovered debate, it felt as if I was introduced to something fresh and new that exercised my brain. This year went pretty well. I earned a few speaker awards and team awards in both novice and JV. It wasn't just the awards that kept me interested though. Being in debate has been lots of fun, and I'm definitely looking forward to next year. Through debate, I finally found something I can do to test myself mentally while still having fun. With that, let me respond to Andrew's case to ban fracking. Andrew makes a compelling case about the downsides of fracking, but we should not take an all-or-nothing approach to this complex issue. Their first reason to ban fracking is the current methane levels in the atmosphere. They say it is too high, but the science behind this says that it is simply not the case, since in fact our evidence says methane levels are low enough now because current methane regulations are strong and enforced. Banning fracking isn't necessary to lower levels more. Brad Johnson, staff writer with the Texan News, reports that Congress established stronger restrictions on methane emitted during the oil and gas drilling, transportation, and refinement process, requiring those companies to invest in emission-limiting technology or face steep fines. We agree that excess methane would be bad, but Congress has already acted and made new regulations to prevent companies from leaking and polluting. Plus, from a business perspective, it wouldn't make any sense to leak out pollution, since why would they want to pollute and waste the very thing that they are seeking out to profit off of? Fracking also drives emissions down even more and is the cleanest way of getting mass reliable energy. According to Drew Johnson, senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research, fracking has resulted in less emissions by replacing coal-fired electricity with clean natural gas. Drew Johnson states the transition away from coal has been great for the environment since burned natural gas produces only half as much as carbon dioxide as burned coal. The U.S. leads the world in cutting carbon emissions. U.S. carbon dioxide emissions are near the lowest point they've been in 25 years. While the affirmative claims fracking has high emissions, the only current alternatives are at least twice as bad. Ever since we have left coal behind, fracking has become the cleanest way to get energy while still being reliable. Fracking isn't as bad as the affirmative makes it out to be, and it's actually far more beneficial than most people realize. With all that being said, we are not naive. Fracking is not perfect. That's why we advocate for creating even stronger regulations that will benefit the fracking industry while making sure there is no impact to public health or climate change. According to Catherine Hausman and Daniel Ramey, professors at the University of Michigan, regulations are effective at limiting methane emissions. Current market forces won't solve the problem, but fracking bans go too far. They say government regulations are needed to induce methane capture, and recent studies show that there are many opportunities for low-cost abatement. Those regulations should be designed to capture the low-hanging fruit, achieving the greatest possible reductions for the lowest possible costs. So our way of solving the problem with fracking is to create strong regulations instead of an all-out ban. These regulations would involve companies having to invest in methane capture technology so it leaks less. If we can capture methane better, we can prevent the environmental impacts of methane leaks without turning back to coal, which is way worse for the environment. So a ban on fracking isn't necessary, and our alternative will be the best way of getting energy in the cleanest way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. So Daniel put some doubt in the minds of the judge that the case is not, does not necessarily have the harms, that it can't solve the problems, and it can lead to alternative problems by trying to, if we ban fracking. Usually what the negative will also do is read what we call off-case positions, and in here they're going to try to find more reasons to vote against the affirmative that is not necessarily directly attacking the affirmative from what the arguments they've read, but instead might lead to what we might call unforeseen consequences. There's a huge variety of these types of arguments. So when you're writing an affirmative case, the job's not done at just writing that your first speech. You have to anticipate every single argument that your opponent's going to make, not only against your case, but also any other arguments you're going to link to. One of the arguments that Tanya is going to bring up is what we call a disadvantage, and that is you're going to do the affirmative case, that's fine, do the affirmative case. They're not going to take any issue with the affirmative case, but instead, or what it will link to is that right now the economy is on the upward. If we ban fracking, suddenly the economy is going to take a downturn, and doing the plan uniquely causes this. They're going to read evidence as to why that's the case, and that will actually lead to worse harms and more immediate harms than the harms brought up by the affirmative. The affirmative's harms are long-term harms. Climate change there are problems that are happening right now because of climate change, as we can see, but most of the impacts are long-term. Tanya's going to try to argue, which is the goal of the disad, that the harms or the impacts of the disadvantage are going to take place before we solve the problem of the affirmative case, and therefore the federal government should not ban fracking because these worst problems will happen before the affirmative can even take place. Oftentimes, the arguments like this will act to, and they'll use the word turn the affirmative case, or it will take the advantage that the affirmative claims that they get, and it will say it will actually either make that problem happen more immediately, or it'll make that problem worse. So Tanya will now stand up and give the disadvantage.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tanya Vasquez. I'm from Huntington Park High School, and I will be presenting the disadvantage argument for the negative. But before I start, I would like to give you a brief introduction to my experience in debate, which I joined this year. I first heard about debate through my theater teacher. She mentioned to me how some teachers wanted to start our school's first ever debate club, and I was immediately drawn in. The idea of having new topics that were outside of my classroom was amazing to me, especially the part where I got to argue it. When it came down to our first ever Lambdal debate round, there were only 3 members in our club. In Lambdal, you debate in pairs, so of course my wonderful teachers made the wise decision to tell me last minute that I was going in alone. Yeah, I was a very inexperienced debater, and I did not know anything about policy debate at the time, and not too shockingly, I lost. However, as rounds continued, I got paired with my partner Logan Gonzalez, and our club grew from 3 members to over 15. Not only that, but my partner and I went from rookie to JV champions to varsity debaters. I can say with full confidence and happiness that I am so glad I stuck around for debate, as not only did I learn how to properly argue, but I learned how to educate myself on the topics around me that aren't just talked about, but still so very important to us. as well as getting the chance to meet like-minded people and debate, such as the kind and wonderful members on my team and in Landell that I know without their diligence and patience in their own work, I wouldn't be here before you all, and I'm very grateful to them. Starting off with the disadvantage. In North Dakota, you can find a place called the Beacon. It's a stretch country rich in oil and natural gas, where there are parking lots full of cars, RVs, and pickups with plates from other states where financial upheaval has shaken many Americans to their core. Here, many breadwinners find difficult but necessary work in the energy industry. Their work is grueling and dangerous, but if you were to ask the workers about their experience, they'd say their accommodations are just fine. They're there for one main thing, the money. Matthew to Jaden, a 21-year-old oil worker, works 80-hour weeks, but takes home $4,000 to $5,000 a week. He's paid off college and his car with his money. Jared DeCastro, a father of 3, works with fracking crew to support his family back home to make sure they can go to good schools. I missed out on their life, but you're up here working for them, says DeCastro. Earlier, Andrew gave a heartfelt speech about how fracking impacts the health of people, and he may have convinced you that we need to go all out and completely ban fracking, but I think we need to slow down and consider the real-world impact of this policy on people like Matthew and Jared before we ban this source of energy. We need to consider some issues they may have overlooked, primarily the jobs of people in this industry. Fracking is not perfect, but there are whole communities that depend on it for their livelihood. If we were to ban this source of income, it would have a ripple effect that devastates the economies of small communities across the country. Let's look at our economy today. Television editor Patty Dom reported that the economy has entered a period of supercharged growth and it could potentially remain stronger than it was during the pre-pandemic era into 2023. We all have felt the impact of the global pandemic. Many jobs and families are only now beginning to find their way back to stability. Intense and radical policy proposals like banning fracking worry me because they may impede this recovery. The link between fracking industry and the economy overall cannot be ignored. A nationwide ban on fracking would have disastrous consequences, including a potential loss of $7.1 trillion in cumulative GDP and millions of jobs by 2030. This is severe enough to trigger a recession. We wouldn't need to wait until 2030 to see the impacts of a ban, though. People who work in fracking industries would immediately lose their jobs. Don't underestimate how many families this impacts. This will not just be those who operate the facilities, but also those who transport the resources across the country and every industry that depends on natural gas to keep themselves going. A ban would have a spillover effect in every industry associated that depends on energy. There is a large array of industries that would need to lay off their workers, and we need to consider them before making such an important decision. This will be felt beyond the fracking industry. Dan Berletti, former Secretary of U.S. Department of Energy, warns that a ban will lead to price hikes for energy and result in a crippling economic effect through increased household energy bills, higher fuel costs for industrial and commercial customers, higher and more frequent electricity price spikes. We're already seeing stress, panic at the high gas prices that are going on right now. Families are already struggling to pay those prices. Imagine a world where your energy bills went even higher. Many families are already on the brink, and right now, something like this would reverse any economic recovery that real people have felt at home. Banning fracking would subject families across the country to financial struggle, both directly and indirectly, which would be nothing but a bad move. Thank you.
You notice in an argument like a disadvantage, like business confidence, she's reading pieces of evidence, or what we would call cards, that are quoting experts. Lots of debates, and this also speaks to the amount of work that it takes, lots of debates, winning or losing a dissent can depend on the recency of your evidence. So you can see that there was forecasting or an outlook of the economy now versus where the economy is going to be versus what happens if we mess with the economy in the way that the affirmative does. They'll read every morning for policy debate teams. They're going to wake up and find the newspapers and see if anyone has written something that's going to maybe reverse the way that their position is currently being run. The affirmative is looking for ways to try to say, well, if the affirmative can prove, for example, that the economy is already going down, like the economy is continuing to worsen, then the negative no longer has access to what we would call the uniqueness argument, which is where she's arguing that the economy is going better, and doing the affirmative uniquely caused it to go down. If the affirmative can argue that the economy is already going down, then the harms of doing the affirmative are lessened. It's already happening, so we don't need to worry about that. Those debates often come down to the date of your evidence. So you're always updating and you're reading the newspaper before every day of every tournament, even during the day of the tournament. you're looking at newspapers, you're looking at magazine articles, and you're trying to get the most recent evidence. So you're continuously not only writing new positions, but also maintaining positions. The next person that's going to come up and speak is going to be Kimtee, and she's going to read an argument that's called a critique. What a critique does is it questions the underlying assumptions of the affirmative and the logic that they're using. And in this instance, she's running a critique that's called settler colonialism, which says that as long as we continue to treat natural resources as a commodity to be exploited, we will never solve climate change. We will never solve the problems that the affirmative is bringing up, because it's our mindset that will keep us from doing those things. So you should vote for the critique as a way, because they can never solve that problem. The critique also will argue that the critique does not, that we should be questioning the mindset of this debate round. It's the question of debate in general, and that the impact of that, of questioning that, has a ripple effect. Not in the fake world of when we do the affirmative, that doesn't actually happen in the real world. But what can actually happen is rethinking how we think about resources and how we think about exploitation of resources and capitalism, and whether or not that is the best solution. And so oftentimes critiques will claim and try to prove a real world impact, not just the fake debate world impact. And Kimtee will be marking that right now.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction, by the way. Just to adjust this. All right. So, hello again. My name is Kimtee Kundu, and I am a recent graduate from Bravo Medical Magnet High School. As some of you may know, I've been debating for the last 4 years for the Los Angeles Metropolitan Debate League. And over the course of these years, I've had the greatest opportunity to truly discover the world around me, explore the many ways in which I can engage within it, and create the lifelong connections within the community that I've been exposed to. In particular, debating has also rewarded me with a flourishing partnership built on effort, determination, and care. And if you know, my partner is Chanay. From teaching the ignorant people about their misogynistic rhetoric to also educating the audience about the relational theories of indigenous feminists, Cindy and I have embraced our own differences through poetic performance, which is a non-normative way of engaging within the debate space. Overall, debate has also allowed us to see more opportunities within and outside of the debate space, and that's truly rewarding. As I mentioned, debate always keeps on giving. So we hope that through our program today, and hopefully through our conversations, you'll also get a glimpse of what that looks like. Moving on to speech. I will be presenting to you the settler colonialism critique. In evaluating the effectiveness of the affirmative plan, it is crucial to distinguish its ties to settler colonialism and the impacts it will have on the indigenous communities if it is passed. Firstly, settler colonialism is a root cause, perpetuating various methods of genocide and oppression of indigenous people and other cultures through its various technologies, such as imperialism and capitalism. Settler colonialism normalizes the continuous settler occupation, exploiting lands and waters to which indigenous people have genealogical relationships. To offer a scholar's perspective, we should also look to Sean Stevenson, who is a PhD candidate in English language and literature from Carleton University. He discusses how water is always framed through a lens of settler neoliberalism that extracts the value from resource commodities. He specifically states, it is the sole conceptions of abstract exchange, value under capitalistic modes of production that shape our interactions within the environment and with each other. Stevenson's distinction also allows us to see how settler colonial control functions to reduce water and its value to merely a transactional resource that proves that there is no regard to the relations and roles water actually plays within indigenous communities. This becomes specifically true when the affirmative doesn't really have a much contextualized or depiction of what its involvement looks like within indigenous communities that are uniquely affected by settler colonialism. Furthermore, Yvonne Sherwood, an associate professor of sociology, reveals that because of the goal of settler colonialism, it is oppositional to native existence. In fact, the affirmative team's attempt for reformism or environmental progressivism only serves to advance the interests of settler system. As Sherwood highlights, indigenous interference with the Western expansion motivated the doctrine of killing the Indian and saving the man. Environmental injustice practices have also supported the logic of indigenous erasure. Lastly, Nick Estes, a Lower Burrell Sioux tribe member and an assistant professor of the University of New Mexico, offers an alternative method of addressing the harms in the status quo and actually prioritizing Indigenous people. This is by giving the land back. As emphasized, land back symbolizes unequivocal aspiration. Indigenous movements and frontlines produce the most advanced revolutionary theory. A movement inspires to reach the broadest audience possible to get the message across. Instead of reconciliating or using the government for the actions that allow settlers to relieve their guilt whilst continuing Indigenous oppression, we advocate for interconnected anti-state movements that are grounded within Indigenous conceptions of water. By directly challenging the United States' control over water, we resist conformity, violence, and erasure, making the alternative comparatively better as a method of overcoming the status quo of settler colonialism. That's the end of my speech.
While we wait for Cindy to give cross-examination, I'm actually going out of order here. I was supposed to introduce cross-ex before that, but Cindy's gonna ask questions. This would normally be one speech, 8 minutes long, at a rapid rate, and probably instead of 2 off-case positions, there might be 4 or 5 off-case positions that the affirmative has to answer. So this would normally be a cross-examination of the affirmative of one negative speaker, but Cindy's going to ask questions of all 3.
Hi, I'm Cindy, and for now, I'll just be asking the questions, and my first cross-ex question is for Daniel, and it is, what solutions is Biden enacting currently that resolve both the climate change and public health issues that are caused by fracking?
Biden is currently enacting regulations such as the Clean Air and Water Act, so it's also reducing climate change and solving for the health issues.
Is that the only known existing regulation?
No, there's other regulations such as the Water Free Act, those regulations also help to combat the issues that you're talking about.
Was that enacted currently?
No, but it could be, and that's why, I talked about stronger regulations which would help combat climate change and health issues.
So this is only a proposition?
Well, yeah, because that's what we're saying. We're saying that we should put stronger regulations so that we could combat climate change and the health issues while still leaving fracking to be beneficial.
Okay, thank you. My next cross-ex question is for Tanya, and you point to a lot of stories of people who make money, but we've also presented as the affirmative that there's a lot of diseases and a lot of health conditions that arise due to fracking. Do these people that also live in these communities near fracking sites and have jobs in them, do they also suffer from these diseases? And if so, do they still, what are the costs of keeping these jobs?
But with Biden's regulations, the proper regulations, these people wouldn't be facing those health problems. And the costs are like that of any hard job, working long hours and hard work. And if the proper regulations are followed, there shouldn't be any health risks. An example would be how a doctor uses an x-ray. They're facing radiation, but with proper regulations, they wouldn't have to worry about that.
Okay, but we're talking about the lives of millions of people, so in this scenario, is keeping the wages of these many people worth the cost of the communities that live around these fracking sites, and as Andrew pointed, the possible extinction of many of these communities?
Well, there wouldn't be extinction because we're having the regulations, and we're not just providing, it'd be the money and the stable income that they would be getting.
Right, but that's still just a proposition. But in my last few questions is for Kimtee, and I want to ask about the viability of the alternative and how long would it take to give the land back as you've stated?
Sure. As I mentioned, this is a process of countering settler colonialism, which in and of itself was a process that was integrated within the Turtle Island, or as the settlers like to call it, the United States of America. So to combat that process, we obviously have to counteract with another process called decolonization. And giving back the land actively takes measures in order to forward decolonization and forward the theories of decolonization and actualize what that looks like. So by doing the alt, which is land back, it will allow us to take those initiatives to forward indigenous conceptions of what water looks like, and that directly holds settlers accountable to make sure that they are no longer able to resourcify or commodify water and exploit it as they are doing within the status quo. And as we said, that it would continue given the plan.
Okay, as I've stated before, fracking impacts many communities, especially in health. So in taking this initiative of giving land back, in that period of time we're initializing this, then wouldn't people still continue to die and still continue to be harmed by fracking sites that are near them, especially, as I said, like communities of like black and brown communities? So would they still be affected?
That's a great question, but I would say that yes, those communities will be affected, but banning fracking doesn't mean that the pollutants that are within the water are going to be automatically removed. If you heard the 1AC, they did not outline how the water would gain more clarity or purification, or there would be many methods of extracting the pollutants, meaning that those indigenous communities, black, brown communities, will still be affected. So why do the plan if it doesn't actually solve for anything? You shouldn't. Because doing the plan means that you accept that those things are still going to happen and that that's okay for those communities to still suffer, because you're not doing anything about them. You're just helping the corporations that manage it or finding out better ways to exploit those communities. So doing the alternative would be comparatively better in comparison to the plan.
Okay, thank you.
I think now Cindy's going to get ready for her affirmative rebuttal speech, and we're going to move now. In the constructive speeches is where debaters establish, or they're essentially setting up all the pieces of the debate round. The affirmative has their affirmative case that they've set up and the arguments that they've made. The negative has said, these are all the arguments we're making against your case. And I wanted, as a sidebar, I wanted to say that once the affirmative has said that they're going to ban fracking, negative can carve out, well, we just will regulate fracking. So that becomes negative ground. Because the affirmative is banning, the negative can advocate for regulation. And so you can see where that some of the tension that might exist might be that, well, how can you say you're going to regulate fracking, but also run this critique argument that wouldn't that by the same logic? You can see where the affirmative has to try to find these sorts of arguments, because in reality, this speech that the affirmative is going to give is one of the most difficult speeches. They have, in a debate round, they have, is it 5 minutes? 5 minutes to respond to 8 minutes of speaking the negative would have given a rebuttal in there already, so it would have been 13 minutes of speaking. They have 5 minutes to respond to 13 minutes of speaking. So they need to look for ways that they can try to eliminate arguments that the negative has made in order to try to rebuild their case and to lessen the impact of the negative. And that takes quite a bit of strategic thinking, while at the same time trying to get through all of the arguments in this speech. Lots of debates are won and lost right here because there's just a lot to cover, and you have to cover it strategically. So on to the affirmative rebuttal.
Hello again, my name is Chanay, and I am also a recent graduate from Francisco Bravo Medical Magnet, and I will be presenting the affirmative rebuttal. But before I begin my speech, I would like to thank everyone for being here, and I would also like to talk about my experiences in debate and all the opportunities it has given me. I began my journey in debate in freshman year with the goal of getting over my fear of public speaking, but within it I found something more. Obviously, standing here, I'm glad to say that I am pretty much over my fear of public speaking. I still get a little nervous, but I'm mostly over it. In debate, I found a family and a community that welcomed me with open arms and gave me a space to speak up on issues that I really cared about, such as Kimtee mentioned, which is Indigenous feminism. It helped me not only get over, I garnered a lot of opportunities that helped me, and now in my future in college, especially in the times where I felt beat down, debate and the family I found within my team helped me through it all. I will always remember the times I spent at every tournament with my partner Kimtee, through the ups and downs and through our wins and losses, and I will always be grateful for this community for everything that they have done for me. Now I'm going to get into my speech, where I'll be answering the case debate, followed by the dissad, and then the critique. On to the case, Daniel made claims to why fracking is a necessary evil, but I will use expert evidence to disprove this. He says fracking is being made safer today through regulations made for Congress, but that simply is not the case. According to Matthew Brown, a reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times, the approvals for companies to drill for oil and gas on U.S. public lands are on pace to reach their highest level since George W. Bush was president. The Interior Department approved about 2,500 permits to drill on public and tribal lands. That includes more than 2,100 drilling approvals since Biden took office. Biden may say that he wants less drilling sites, but his actions prove otherwise. Brown believes that gas and oil production will continue well into the future. We have already seen gas prices as high as $7. Fracking won't be stopped unless we stop it. This is why I believe we must ban fracking. Daniel also then makes claims that fracking is better for emissions, but according to Ted Nance, founder and director of the Global Energy Monitor, natural gas can no longer credibly be viewed as a bridge fuel between coal and renewables because of methane leaks. These accidental emissions occur during drilling in the pipeline or during delivery. As Andrew explained earlier, methane is roughly 30 times more harmful than carbon dioxide emissions. Finally, Daniel claims regulations will prevent these devastating leaks, but industry rules and government regulations can't make fracking safe. According to Edward C. Kettier, pediatrician and president-elect of Physicians for Social Responsibility in Pennsylvania, fracking has never been shown to operate safely anywhere. In fact, studies show that fracking results in fine particle pollution that can't be avoided, leaks of methane occurring at every stage of frack gas and can't be eliminated. Regulations can't change the fundamental ways that fracking works. This is why we have to ban fracking, because we can't continue to rely on regulations that won't keep us safe. And now onto the disadvantage. Next, I will respond to Tanya's claims about the impact of our proposal on jobs. Fracking isn't economically beneficial. It's not a profitable industry, and the wealth goes elsewhere than the local communities Tanya talks about. According to Christina Marusik, a staff writer for EHN, the fracking boom has failed to deliver on the promise of jobs and benefits to local communities. 90% of the wealth created from shale gas extraction leaves local communities. This proves that fracking won't sustain the economy and doesn't even contribute to the communities where they are located. Fracking jobs aren't low-income accessible and don't stimulate local economies, meaning that there's no reason to sustain such a wasteful industry that affects the health of so many local communities with zero benefit to them. Thus, we must ban fracking to prevent diseases that surge as a result of fracking and methane. The health of our communities must come first, as they are the primary ones affected by harmful fracking sites. Now, onto the critique. I will be responding to Kimtee's claims that pertain to the root cause of environmental problems such as fracking. Kimtee makes the claim that we have to look beyond policies to create real solutions. They even provided an alternative that can solve that, but no government official will want to engage in this. In addition, the pragmatism of the alternative will result in more people dying from contaminated drinking water. But we can propose that we can do both. It will solve better. It engages in a form of praxis that challenges settlerism inside and outside the government. According to Cleo Wolf Erskine, an assistant professor for environmental affairs at the University of Washington, federal and state law and policy support tribal sovereignty and government-to-government relationships. Settlers must push our governments to uphold commitments to indigenous sovereignty and work directly to support indigenous ecocultural revitalization, something done by passing the F Plan. That way, alliances between settlers and native nations on whose land they live have started to transfigure those governance processes from below. Banning fracking now can save millions of lives, especially of indigenous communities that are affected by fracking, while also tackling underlying reasons for such environmental conditions that Kimtee talks about. Doing both would bring the best of both worlds and solve for both impacts. Allowing fracking to continue and letting the alternative function on its own would fail, and thus we should do both, and that's the only way to go. And that's the end of my speech.
Okay, we're going to move into the last two rebuttals here. In rebuttal speeches, debaters cannot make new arguments. So you can't just come up with something and say, oh, I forgot I wanted to say this too. You can't do that. The judge, that's one of the rules of debate. The only rules in debate are the times, no new arguments or rebuttals, and judges need to make decisions based on what's said in the debate round. Everything else becomes debatable in a debate round. In these last two speeches, this next one that the negative is going to give, the affirmative speaks first and last. This is since they have the burden of proof. The negative speech that's going to happen right now, we call the 2NR, and many believe it is the most difficult speech in the debate round because they have to anticipate what the affirmative is going to go for. That means they need to know what they're winning and which arguments they're losing, and they need to make sure that they're emphasizing what they're winning and make sure that they're covering all their bases, or in debate we would say close the doors on the arguments that they think that the affirmative might be winning. So they kind of have to get in the judge's head a little bit. They have to get in the affirmative's head what they're going to go for, and because they can't respond to what the affirmative says here, they have to close all the doors, any possibility for the affirmative to win. And in these last two speeches, I'm not going to speak after this next one, in these last two speeches, they essentially want to be writing the ballot for the judge. They want to tell the judge how they're going to make their decision, so it becomes more of a storytelling. They're going to try to put all the pieces together, and this is where rounds are won and lost in these last two speeches. Thank you. Jokim.
How y'all doing? I'm Jokim, and I'm back up here again. So before I start, I just say why I love debate. I love debate because it's like another family. I was able to find a brother and my partner Andrew. Me and Andrew went through a lot of ups and downs this year, as you heard from his speech earlier. I'm glad I was able to make history with my brother. Also, debate gave me a new passion. Before high school, my passion was singing, acting, and playing football. My school did not have any opportunities for any of those, but I was able to find a passion in debate. I love this activity, and I will continue to work hard, and I will continue to love it. Now, let's finish this debate off. The order of my speech will go the critique, regulations over bans, and then the disad. First off, we'd like to agree that we should do both. The permutation would bring the best of both worlds and solve for the impacts on the K and the case. You can no longer vote on this argument, so strike it off of your flow. Second, Cindy makes the argument that fracking is still bad and regulations won't solve, yet she doesn't explain an alternative to fracking. Fracking is important because not only does it increase oil expansion, but it also provides energy inside of the US. If we completely ban fracking, then there is not a cleaner alternative for us to use. She states that fracking is a problem due to methane leaks that occur, but if we add more regulations, more guidelines in place, we can prevent these dangerous methane leaks from happening. Burning natural gas is much cleaner than boiling coal if we do it safely. According to KillerPath, a company meant to inform us on environmental issues, natural gas has also been an economically viable means of reducing carbon pollution. Natural gas use in the U.S. has reduced carbon dioxide emissions to level out since the 1990s. We are leading the U.S. in reducing carbon pollution with fracking, which actually decreases climate change. Cindy believes that regulations can't prevent leaks, but doesn't that sound just a little too pessimistic? Cindy decides to quote a pediatrician in the matter of an issue that has nothing to deal with pediatric work. He is a doctor. In order to have a clear mindset on how to solve this problem with fracking, you need to do research on the fracking industry and its functioning uses. Based on professionals in the fracking industry like James Hill from GasFac or Ben Radner from the Environmental Defense Fund, natural gas is inevitable, and the best thing for us to do is to find safer ways to do it, like maybe water-free fracking being implemented across all boards, using recycled water or brine instead of fresh water, eliminating diesel fumes, treating wastewater, and plugging methane leaks. If we are able to control the root problem, we can still use fracking safely through regulations. Lastly, I'll respond to Cindy's claim that fracking won't sustain the economy. Fracking provides 5.6% of total U.S. employment as of right now. That may not seem like much, but that is 9.8 million jobs that are being filled right now. If we ban fracking, all those 9.8 million people lose jobs, they lose their money, they can lose their homes, they will be on the street, they'll have nothing to eat. 9.8 million people will lose jobs if we ban fracking, according to the API. And that number is projected to rise. Low-cost natural gas made a $2.08 trillion contribution to the U.S. manufacturing sector alone in 2013. Just imagine what that number is now. That number is still rising. Christina Moswick is a journalist who hasn't looked at the job and the economic benefit of fracking nationally. She checked on the problem regionally, but on a national scale, it makes such a difference. If we ban fracking, not only do we get rid of 9.8 million jobs in the U.S., leaving those people jobless and eventually homeless, but it can also cause a detrimental economic deficit in the U.S. We can resolve this entire issue if we just regulate fracking instead of banning it. Thank you.
Okay, hi. So, hello guys, my name is Kritik Ortega. I am now a graduate of Humanities and Arts Academy. And before I begin, I just want to say or give a huge round of applause to everybody who came out tonight. You guys are an amazing audience. Great to have you guys, outstanding audience. I also wanted to thank Lambda staff and especially Joseph for putting together this amazing event today. So another round of applause for Joseph. So before I get into the closing statement of this discussion, I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience in debate. So hello all again, my name is Kritik Ortega and I'll be making a closing statement in favor of banning fracking in the United States. And before I do that, I want to tell you a little about my unique experience here in debate. This past season, my partner, Destiny Popoka, who isn't here right now, and I were the varsity champions at Lambda's Sandra Seville Jones Memorial Tournament, as well as varsity finalists at the following tournament. Also, me and Destiny were former junior varsity champions and former novice finalists. Earning those awards were hard work, but I did that work through debate because I've grown intellectually and personally. Through debate, I've explored topics that I didn't even know existed. On the surface, I learned about policy and the environment and other pressing topics. But on a deeper level, the activity has allowed me to reflect on my own life and discover things about myself that I never knew. Debate taught me this because I had to not only negate other people's ideas and arguments, but often I had to negate against myself. Debating against what you think is right really shows you a perspective outside your bias. This overall gives you a higher understanding around the world and also helps you grow overall like a sunflower in a pot. In debate, I've joined a community of amazing and interesting people and competed on the top stages in intellectual battles that only a select few have been able to shine on. Lando, now its first ever national championship win, has finally been recognized for what it should be. An organization, no, a family that is responsible for educating and growing amazing human beings through policy debate. That is why I debate. Because being responsible and a part of an institution and organization that shows urban kids like me that power isn't so unobtainable. It's right in your brain, eyes, mouth, ears, and hands. All you have to do is take a hold of it. So thank you, Lambda, for giving me the power to make a difference. So, to start off this speech, I would like to rebuttal against a popular argument people make about the banning of hydraulic fracturing. People say, especially the negative, that if we ban fracking, we will resort back to fossil fuels such as coal. We have evidence that proves this wrong. Again, citing the evidence that Cindy said earlier, Matt Egan, a journalist for the lead CNN Business, citing Ted Nance, said that the problem is that the LNG boom will create harmful methane emissions, a greenhouse gas that is roughly 30 times more harmful than carbon dioxide emissions. And again, both coal and natural gas produce CO2 emissions, though natural gas creates far less than coal. If the proposed LNG expansion goes forward, the climate impact will be twice as damaging as the current installed base of coal in the United States, the Global Energy Monitor told CNN Business. Again, quote, "We know that LNG is not a good answer climate-wise," Nance said, and that natural gas can no longer be credibly viewed as a bridge fuel between coal and renewables because of methane leaks. These accidental emissions occur during drilling in pipelines and during delivery. So hydraulic fracking has proved that the gas it produces hurts our chances at ending the threat of climate change, and we need to ban it. And again, talking about public health, Jake Johnson, a writer for Common Dream, says that a comprehensive analysis of nearly 1,500 scientific studies, the governmental reports, and media studies on the consequences of fracking released Wednesday found that the evidence overwhelmingly shows that the drilling method proposes a profound threat to public health and the climate. Physicians for Social Responsibility and Concerned Health Professionals of New York found that 90.3% of all original research studies established from 2016 to 2018 on health impacts of fracking found a positive association with harm or potential harm. Fracking has harmed the people living around the sites, and it's no coincidence. Again, the Forbes also stated that another Hopkins/Grenister study looked at the records of almost 11,000 women with newborns who live near fracking sites and found a 40% chance of increased chance of having premature baby and a 30% risk of having the pregnancy classified as a high risk, though they controlled the socioeconomic status of other risk factors. An analysis from SPR found that 69% of all original research studies on water quality found potential or actual evidence of fracking associated water contamination. 97 or 87% of original research studies found the indication that there is potential harm. There is no evidence that fracking can operate without threatening public health directly. Without the imperiling climate stability upon the public health depends. Altogether, the data shows that fracking has impaired the health of people who live nearby, especially pregnant women and people of color. Fracking swings a wrecking ball at climate change. We need to urgently call on political leaders to act on the knowledge we compelled. My opponents are trying to convince you that fracking is more healthy than dirty, but the leaks caused by the practice only contaminates air and water. We have no other choice than to ban fracking if this country and the world wants a long and healthy future. So again, I urge all of you to understand that banning fracking is more than an urgent matter. Fracking in the U.S. is a matter of public health and climate stability. Without the banning of hydraulic fracturing, the people in our country will continue to feel the effects of contaminated water and air. Many of the people in this room, many of you now, are either parents or grandparents. And tonight offers a very interesting story to the debate about how people who work in the fracking will lose their jobs and how these people need to keep working to sustain life. While it is true that they may need a job, it is not true that fracking is their only job option. As for example, Andrew said earlier in the cross-ex that even though it might be hard, people will need to find other jobs. There is a world full of jobs out there for people, especially considering that the people who work in fracking are highly valuable to other construction employers. Another point I would like to make is that even if fracking provides people with a job, it doesn't mean that the job they are doing is safe or is morally correct. Banning fracking will only give these workers an opportunity at a safer job and a better life, where they don't have to face the moral dilemmas of potentially getting other people sick or destroying the climate. We need to prioritize health over jobs. People can get another job, but they cannot get another life. So I'm going to ask you all the question. Do you want your children, your grandchildren, to suffer just to save an extremely dispensable, outdated energy source? Do you want your children and grandchildren to live in a dying world where they have to live day to day worrying about if their water or air is safe or if it's okay to breathe? If not, no, you should make the push with us to ban hydraulic fracking. And I beg you, don't just do it for yourself. Do it for the millions and trillions of new baby and people who deserve to live in a world where they can enjoy fresh air and cool, clean water. Thank you.
Can we hear it one more time for all of these incredible debaters? I mean, this was such a phenomenal showcase, and I hope that you saw sort of the complex beauty of a policy debate in all of its different forms. Really appreciate all of you for your time and your efforts this year and for being a part of this event. This really couldn't be possible, and these debaters really couldn't be possible without the teachers who are also the coaches and the administrators at the school. So can we hear it to our debate coaches? I know many of them are here tonight as well. So thank you to the coaches. Many of them also go above and beyond and host tournaments at their high schools, and that's a whole other ordeal with tons of rooms that they're reserving and making all those moving parts work. We also have college partners like Cal State Long Beach, who's been a steadfast supporter, so give it up for Devin and folks from Cal State Long Beach. We have Cal State Northridge that hosted our city champs this year, and of course USC has been a long supporter of our program. I also really want to thank our host for the event, Mike Bietz, who gave some incredible color commentary. Keep it up for Mike. one part of the debate that you didn't see was after all of these speeches, we have 3 judges, and many times, especially for the more advanced rounds of debates, we have alumni and college debaters give this incredible feedback to the debaters. Probably one of my favorite parts of the debate is hearing the feedback that the judges give to the debaters, and Mike sort of filled in some of that for us tonight. So before we go and have some food and drinks on the patio, I want to thank a couple of people. I want to first and foremost thank our board of directors, also many of whom are here tonight. So please give it up to the Lambdal board. Pretty much all of them are former debaters, so they know the impact that this has on lives. And of course, they're incredible supporters of our work. We have a number of sponsors for our event tonight that have also been ushered in by our board members. So I want to give quick shout outs to some of our board members who did a great job getting us some sponsors. Wade Gentz, Henry Weissman, Kira Johal, Jonathan Schneller, and Justine Daniels. Thank you. And the sponsors tonight were, our presenting sponsors are Munger, Tolles, and Olson, and also the firm Mitchell, Silberg, and Knupp. And we also had supporting sponsors from Covington and Burling, Denton's, Loeb and Loeb, O'Mulvaney and Myers, and TM Financial Forensics. One thing that you might know or might not know or are probably noticing when you look at our sponsors is that there's this real natural pathway to a number of incredible careers, but of course a lot of debaters go into the field of law. And one thing that we've been working on in our organization is to sort of illuminate these career pathways for our students, because we recognize that you know, when you are in a debate activity and you're in a debate program, you're automatically going to level up academically. Of course, all the skills that you gain through this activity, from public speaking to really seeing both sides of the story, is incredibly viable in the workforce. So we wanted to really illuminate some of the places that you can go from being a debater. So we're launching a number of new programs this year to really highlight all of these career pathways to support students as they go into college, as well as are searching out their careers. This fall, we're launching a fellowship program. So starting on Monday, we will be launching our first Lambdal Fellows program. So for debaters that are here, it's open to Lambdal debaters and alumni, and they'll get mentorship. They'll have access to internships and seminars that help them with everything from creating resumes to networking, all kinds of amazing opportunities that are coming this year. So with that, I want to sort of shout out the Lambdal staff, because they work really hard and we have a really small but mighty team. Thank you. So Gabriela Gonzalez is our programs and operations manager. She was checking you in. She's actually developing with a number of folks in our community this career and college pathways program. So give it up for Gabriela. She's out there, so be loud. I also want to thank our regional managers, Albert Cardenas and Amber Brooks. Amber is online helping this thing happen. This is being streamed, and Albert's also out there checking folks in. And last but not least, we have an incredible program director. He's been instrumental in impacting our work, and he has just an incredible professionalism and just dedication to this league. Just to give you a little insight into just this event alone, not only did he work with all of these debaters and help prepare them for this event and their speeches, he also ran all of this tech, and he did all the graphics. He's like a Swiss Army knife for nonprofits, and we really appreciate him. So give it up for, many know him as J Flo. I know him as Joseph Flores, so give it up for Joseph Flores. Just an impeccable event. I've been wanting this as someone who's been in nonprofit my whole career but hasn't been a debater. I've just been wanting a format where we can really understand all of these incredible complexities that are happening, and I really appreciate you all for making that happen, selfishly for myself and also for this audience. To close out our event, I want to bring up our board co-chair to say a few words. We do have a text to give. I'm going to write it right there as Bart's coming up, so you can text if you want to support our work. You can go to our website, lambdal.org/support. And our board co-chair is also one of the founders of the organization, so it's a great honor for me to welcome up Mr. Bart Williams.
Hi, everybody. First of all, I want to thank everyone for coming. It's a real pleasure to be here. And
from the bottom of our hearts, we really appreciate each and every one of you for coming. I wanted to say, let's give another round of applause to these incredibly talented young people. It is one of the most gratifying things in my career that Henry, my former debate partner, and I, Henry, please stand. Henry Weissman was my debate partner in high school many, many moons ago, and we started up the Lambdal League about 14, 15 years ago with our beloved former partner who's passed away, Sandra Seville-Jones. Sandra was a debater 2 years ahead of Henry and me, and she was a legend at the time. And she was one of the people that we looked up to when we started out as debaters. I'm somebody who kind of backed into debate. I saw myself as a jock. I was an athlete. Basketball was my sport, and that was really my whole life as a young person until I had an older brother who convinced me to try to do debate in the 9th grade. He was 3 years ahead of me. And I went kicking and screaming, didn't want to do it. But I went to one tournament. I promised him I would go to one tournament, and once I did, I never turned back. And I did both basketball and debate, and Henry was so wonderful because over those times, whenever there was a basketball game or something like that that conflicted, Henry would debate with other people, but he would always come back to me. And we had a lot of success. We did really well. We traveled all over the United States and debated, and it changed my life. Henry and I went to law school together at Yale. We went to the same law firm together, practiced there together for about 25 years. So I can honestly say that debate changed my life, just like I'm sure it has changed the lives of each and every one of these folks who's up here. It does everything for you. It allows you to understand critical thinking. It allows you to overcome that fear that we all have about public speaking when we first start out. It allows us to learn how to win with grace, how to lose with grace, how to be resilient, how to come back. To this day, when I'm interviewing people for our law firm, and I ask them, and if they happen to say that they debated, and most folks are smart enough, they're smart enough to put on there somewhere that they did high school or college debate if they did, because they understand what it means. Because that fellowship in the world of debate, everybody knows what it means. What it means is that you aren't somebody who's just going to get knocked down and sit. You are somebody who knows how to get back up. You know how to solve problems. You know how to think critically, take both sides of a question. All of those critical thinking skills are the most important thing that debate teaches us, and it truly changes lives. And I wanted to shout out to Michael Cirelli, who is a phenomenal executive director. I really just wanted to. We are so grateful to have you with us. We really are. We're so grateful. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Mike Bietz, because Mike Bietz is a legend. The number of people whose lives Mike has changed is too many to count. It's more than probably anybody in this room combined. And the fact that you've done it, Mike, for so many years and changed so many lives, we really appreciate it, because it takes a special person to try to teach and to coach and to bring people along. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Good luck to each and every one of you. I know that you're going to do great things. I have absolutely no doubt. Thank you all for coming. Tell your friends, try to get them to contribute, because a little bit of money goes such a long way with this league. It makes such a difference in so many people's lives. So tell a friend, and now let's go grab something to eat on the patio. Thank you.
Daniel, great work, man.
Oh, thanks.
This is the art from who? Who is this from?
From me and Kimtee.
There is no regulation. No, it doesn't. We already proved that bracket is the one in seat wins the inheritance. How the Grizzlies are part of already, bro. That's an easy win. That's an easy out there.
Close enough.
I already did. Do I say hi to your family?